Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda
Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Sri Caitanya Charitamrta ki.
Jai.
So today is Sunday, just in case you didn't know. Today's Sunday. And it is common in many Hare Krishna temples around the world on Sunday to read the life and teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is of course depicted on our altar here. So more fitting it is that we read Chaitanya Charitamrta today. This is his biography, but it's also an elaborate exposition of the philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as taught to his intimate disciples such as Srila Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Ramananda Roy, Swarup Damodar, the other Goswamis such as Raghunath Das, and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Of course, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was witness to the diaries that were kept by Murari Gupta. So it was all funneled into the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We're on verse 102. Do you normally do this? You normally have a bash at the Bengali? I'll just read it. I'll just read it. Batula Nahayog Hari Rahata Vaishya Krishna Darashana Kari Kali Ratreyana Yara. Translation. Do not become mad. Simply sit down here and tomorrow night you will go see Krishna. Pratakali Bhavyaloka Prabhustani Aila Krishna Deki Aila Prabhu Tarai Puchila. The next morning, some respectable gentlemen came to see Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, and the Lord asked them, "Have you seen Krishna?" Lokakahi ratre kaivaratya napkate chariya kaliya dahi matsyamare dayuti jivaliya. These respectable gentlemen replied, "At night, in Kaliya Lake, a fisherman lights a torch in his boat and catches many fish. Dura hoite tahal eki lokera hai brahma kaliyera sharire Krishna kariche nartana." From a distance, people mistakenly think that they are seeing Krishna dancing on the body of the Kaliya serpent. Nokate Kaliya Jnana Dipe Ratna Jnane Jaliyare Mudaloka Krishna Karimane. These fools think that the boat is the Kaliya serpent and the torchlight the jewels on his hoods. People also mistake the fisherman for Krishna. Vrindavani Krishna Aila Se Satya Hoy Krishnere Dekila Loka Iha Mityanai. Actually, Lord Krishna has returned to Vrindavan. That is the truth. And it is also true that people have seen him. Kintu kahon Krishna deke, kahon brahmamani, stanu purushe yoiche, vipartita jnani. Where they are seeing Krishna is their mistake. It is like considering a dry tree to be a person. Purport. The word stanu means a dry tree without leaves. From a distance, one may mistake such a tree for a person. This is called stanu purusha. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was living in Vrindavan, the inhabitants considered him an ordinary human being, and they mistook the fisherman to be Krishna. Every human being is prone to make such mistakes. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was mistaken for an ordinary sannyasi. The fisherman was mistaken for Krishna, and the torchlight was mistaken for bright jewels on Kaliya's hoods. Hare Krishna. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshurum Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Well, it's very interesting that our discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam neatly flows into our discussion today on Chaitanya Charitamrita. we have a case of what is known as Brahma. Brahma. You've got to be careful how you spell it. Bhrama. As opposed to the creator of the universe, which is Brahma. Brahma. So Brahma means bewilderment. It actually means spinning, a whirlpool, something which is spinning, dizziness, a dizziness which comes on as a form of being illusioned by what one sees. And normally they say that we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. Whatever you are, you see the world in that way. Whatever he is, he sees the world in that way. Whatever she is, she sees the world in that way. The way I like to explain it is, if there is an eagle, did you know that an eagle's eye can see an ant from the top of a, it's like a human, no, an eagle can see a little rabbit or a little mouse from 1 mile high in the sky. Amazing. Something to do with what they call in the fovea, there's different receptors in a human being. Back of the eye, the receptors, whereas a human being can only see an ant, for instance, when it's very close up. But an eagle, if it was on top of an 8-story building, could see the ant on the pavement down below. That's amazing eyesight. And it's made that way. It's made that way because it has to catch food. If it doesn't catch food, it won't eat. So in this way, every creature is blessed with the ability to mate, to find a mate, and to eat. The mating game is a complicated game, isn't it, for humans? It's very simple for animals. Did you know that a moth can smell, a male moth can smell a female moth a mile away? Did you know that? No. Now ask me how they found that out. They put little trackers on the moths and track them. And a fish can hear another fish a mile away. And whales can hear each other miles away. And flies can walk on the ceiling. And every creature has got some superhuman power. Okay? But humans have a superhuman power too. It's just not always residing in the eyes or the ears. We're actually not that good at sense perception. Right now, there could be a whole noisy kirtan going on in the yoga barn. Can you hear it? No. You won't know if it's happening or whether I'm just making it up. Because we can't hear. We're not that good at hearing. Our hearing is not that good. Our sight is not that good. Did you know that the little creatures can see infrared and ultraviolet in the middle of a flower? And that's how they get to the middle of the flower to get the honey. They're guided in, like an airplane is guided in by radar, so that it can land properly. So a little animal is guided in. Now we could develop a conversation about whether it's evolution or whether it's the super intelligence that created the principle of evolution. We don't decry the principle of evolution. Evolution is a fact. We just don't say that evolution is the only reason for the origin of species. We say there's intelligence involved as well. But when it comes to intelligent design, the human being is not so good. And in our ignorance of what we see around us, we project. We take something, and whatever's inside us, we project that onto the world. Just like the old story of the ship at midnight. You know that one? There was a ship at midnight, and he's going across, pitch black, and he sees a light off in the distance. And the captain of the ship says, you send a light signal, flash a signal. He's too close. Tell him to move 20 degrees starboard. So the ship's mate, second mate, sends a message. You're ordered to move 20 degrees starboard. You're sailing too close. The captain thinks we're on a crash course. And then the little flash comes back. Says, no, you move. he says, you send him a message. He said, you're on a crash course. I'm a battleship. You're on a crash course. If you don't move, it'll be very bad for you. He gets a message back, and I'm a lighthouse. You move. So the captain was thinking, it's a light, it's another ship. Okay. Now here, what we're talking about is Stanu Purusha. Prabhuji, who led such a wonderful kirtan this morning at Okshadya Krishna. Give him a round of applause. You had us talk about inspiration. It was perspiration. Before breakfast even, on a Sunday morning. We should all be having a lie-in, but he's got us up and dancing. So at Okshadya Krishna was telling me, I think I can reveal this. But once you had to walk through a forest, and the forest was populated by all kinds of ghosts and goblins, and all the trees were trying to tear your eyes out. Is that right? But he prayed to Lord Nrsingadev. I've also been in that situation, walking back home from the manor one night. I could have swore that there was something in the bushes moving. And of course, because I am the center of the universe, they're all trying to eat me. So this is what we go through life thinking. I'm the center of the universe, and everything in the world around me is somehow related to me. She looked at me. She must like me. She didn't look at me. She's a horrible person. He looked at me. He's a thief. He didn't look at me. What a boring character. And we immediately begin labeling everyone and everything in the world like that, don't we? There's many things that have, many mistakes have been made with our mental projection of what we feel inside. Perhaps we feel something about ourselves that's negative. You ever been in that situation? You sort of think, I'm not this, I'm not that. I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm no one. And you project that out into the world. If you project that out into the world during a job interview, don't be surprised if they don't hire you. So we project that into our relationships, we project that into even spiritual life, we bring it in with us. It's our, the way we look at the world. So the whole point here is that you can't project because mistakes can be made. Just like the boy whose guru was a veterinary surgeon. In India, to be a guru means you can teach anything. You can have a pottery guru, a veterinary guru, a psychiatric guru. You can be a guru of anything. So his guru was a veterinary surgeon, looked after animals. And one day he was walking with his guru down the road, and he saw a horse, and the horse had got a big lump in its throat, both sides of its throat. Okay, Jeff? The big horse, and the horse was choking. When horses choke, their eyes bulge, and you want to do something to help them. So the guru immediately understood what it was, because that's what gurus get paid to do. Size up a situation and analyze the truth. Some of them, maybe not this one, but this vet guru did. Anyway, so he said, the horse has swallowed a melon. The horse has swallowed a melon without chewing the melon. And so he took a big stick and he began beating the horse on the neck. Now, under normal circumstances, you don't beat a horse on the neck. But in order to save someone's life, you can do practically anything. Just as in normal life, you don't walk up to a person and start going, staying alive, staying alive, staying alive. But if someone's if someone's dying, and they really need to have their heart started again, you will keep them alive. So he whacked the horse on the neck, and the whacking broke the melon. Yes, Kripa Moya Prabhu just did sing the Bee Gees. Yes. So the horse began choking, out came the pieces of the melon, and the horse survived. So the boy noted it down in his book. He said, yes. He said, this is something I can learn from. So then, a couple of weeks later, he was in a marketplace. And in India, sometimes you have different kind of vitamin deficiencies. People don't always eat as well as they could. So sometimes if there's a deficiency in iodine, people get what they call goiter. And it causes your neck to swell up, your thyroid glands to swell on both sides. So this man was sitting at the side of the road, and he was obviously in some discomfort. And he had a huge swollen neck because of goiter. So then the young man said, I have a guru. He's a very intelligent guru. He's given me a message for you. He said, I can solve your problem. No, no difficulty. He said, please, anything your guru has told me. So the boy picked up a stick and started whacking the man on the neck. So what happened was, of course, the man was offended and in pain. So what is good for the goose is not good for the gander. So the boy had taken one set of instructions, life-saving instructions, and applied them to another situation. That is not appropriate. So projecting from myself into the world and seeing something which is not there, that's wrong. Taking good advice and projecting that onto another situation, that's wrong. And listening to good advice from someone, which isn't actually good advice, it's bad advice, that's also bad. So the boy was mistaken, but also the man with the goiter, he was so desperate, he was also mistaken. So in desperation, sometimes people will, they'll eat or drink anything. I lived in Africa for a while, and the washing powder, Persil, because it washes white, whiter than white. People would use Persil. In the church services, I've been to church services where people have a musical offering session. I'm at the back. And this is in, upper Kenya. And during the offering, when they come around with a plate, they don't come around with a plate. People walk up to the altar before God, but they dance. So the drums are going, they're dancing up to the altar. And they're all going up to the altar with their flowers and their coins and their packets of Persil. Someone or other, this is considered to be a valuable commodity. So you go up to the altar, you spin a few times, and you're going up with your Persil. Anyway, Persil in some places is used as a medicine. So people with an open gash on their leg, they're taking Persil and they're rubbing it in. So lack of information can be very harmful. So in this situation, what was happening was that it was in Vrindavan. And in Vrindavan, there's something very important happened. Krishna danced in the middle of a lake on top of a snake that had many heads. And this ancient tale comes down to us even today from the Bhagavad Purana, from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's one of the most amazing stories, that Krishna was such a dancer that as Krishna danced, he could place the next step while creating his dance on the next head of Kaliya. So there's Krishna dancing, amazing. Srila Prabhupada was once in a big Pandal program in India, and Mayavadi stood up in the audience and he tried to say something impersonal. And then Prabhupada responded by saying that God is a person, God is personal, and he does so many things all at the same time. He said, you can only do one thing at a time, or at best 2 things at a time. But God, he can do 26 things all at the same time. For instance, when Krishna was dancing on the heads of Kaliya, Krishna's toes were describing the movements of the different planets around the sun. So Prabhupada was just describing all these things that Krishna was doing at the same time as dancing. Krishna is not only ambidextrous, but he's, what's the word for being able to do multitasking? Anyway, so this particular story, this history had taken place And the people in Vrindavan had a very strong desire to see Krishna. But sometimes sentimentality covers over the idea of becoming qualified to see Krishna. And so we imagine that we've seen Krishna when we actually have not. Sometimes, especially in Russia, devotees, I don't know why Russia. You got any Russians here? Yeah, Russians here. Sometimes in Russia, people will look at the deities and then they'll turn to the devotees and say, Krishna blinked his eyes at me. Or Krishna did this, or Krishna, I had a dream last night and Krishna spoke to me. And he told me such and such. So we want Krishna to speak to us. We want to see Krishna dancing on the hoods of Kali. But we cannot force Krishna's hand. When I first became a devotee, they were telling me all kinds of wonderful things that would happen if you chanted Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I chanted and I thought, did I just experience something there? Maybe I did. And after 4 days, they came up to me and they said, so, do you experience anything when you chant Hare Krishna? I said, yes. I said, yes, I think so. They said, oh, Jai. Can you tell us what it is? I said, yeah, well, as I was chanting, I was looking out to the horizon, and I saw a red light on the horizon. And it came towards me ever so slightly. And they said, okay, just keep chanting. That was Gyanadas. So we invent different things. We mentally project on devotees that they're either not as advanced as I am, isn't it? Have you ever done that? The remains of lust, greed and anger. You looked around a room full of devotees and you thought, yes, I'm better than all these people. Or you've looked around a room full of devotees and you've got, they find Krishna consciousness so easy. I find it so difficult to believe things, to practice things. Why do I find it so difficult? So we are mentally projecting. You're mentally projecting, in the second case, your insecurity, and you're mentally projecting your pride in the first case. And therefore having a referent point of a devotee is very, very helpful. Therefore Sangha is very important, association with devotees. You can go to another devotee and you can say, Prabhuji, do you think I'm the best devotee in the temple? And they will give you their opinion. Or you can go to the devotee and you can say, Prabhuji, do you think I'm the worst devotee who's ever lived? They'll give you their opinion. So Prabhupada said it is like this. He said it is like this. He said it is like this. The Guru is like this. He said it is like this. He said, a man is making a pot. And he takes a piece of metal. And he hammers the metal so it forms the shape of a pot. But inside the pot, he puts his fist, clenched fist. And on the outside, tap, 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 tap with his hammer. Tap, tap, tap. He said, this is the Guru. He said, tap, 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 correcting, correcting, correcting. Inside, supporting, supporting, supporting. So when the Guru sees the disciples become proud, you nonsense, you fool, you rascal, why are you the worst of devotees? When the disciple becomes crestfallen, the Guru says, you're such a wonderful devotee. So we learn to, with Prabhupada, he said it was said that he was soft as a rose, but hard as a thunderbolt at the same time. So in this way, Prabhupada fashioned everyone. And the Guru's instructions are meant to fashion us. And according to how Krishna sees the world, we are told what reality is. Now, it is a great leap for us to go from assessing what reality is using our senses to assessing what reality is using Shastra. Because we're still trying to think, is Krishna really real? This is our position. Is everything they say about Krishna real? Is it true? I've never seen Krishna, never smelled Krishna, never touched Krishna, never tasted Krishna, never heard Krishna. Is it all made up? Okay? So we think like that. And we turn to Shastra. And the idea of Shastra, ideally you move from the Upanishads through to the Puranas, through to the Bhagavad Purana, because that gives you a description of how faulty the senses are, then to how important Shastra is, then to how important it is to understand your relationship with Krishna, and then to how important it is to have an experience of Krishna. So luckily for all of us, there's no one here in this room that has not experienced Krishna in some way. I don't think it's possible to come to Krishna consciousness such that you would spend a weekend with the devotees flying in from a different part of the world, part of Europe, part of England, to spend a weekend with the devotees if you hadn't already experienced Krishna in some way. The thing is that Krishna is very generous. He gives himself very generously. He's very kind. He's Karuna Sindhu. So therefore, will he be kind to me? This is a devotee's prayer. One devotee called Yamuna Acharya, he wrote, he said, "My dear Lord, you are known as the most merciful. Especially you are even merciful even to the most fallen. Since I am the most fallen, you should be merciful to me." That is obvious. In fact, for you to keep your name as the most compassionate, you need someone like me. My dear Krishna, I need someone like you because I'm in need of mercy. But you need someone like me to prove that you're full of mercy. So let us keep this relationship between us going. And Vedanta Deshika, he says, "My dear Lord," and we spin round to the vultures on a string thing. There's another bird on a string example. Vedanta Deshika, who was in the 1200s and 1300s, like that. He said, "My dear Lord," he said, "I'm just like a bird on a string. You've caught me. You've tied me by a piece of string. You're pulling me towards you, but I keep on flapping, trying to escape. He said, I'm a devotee. I want to be a devotee, but I keep on trying to escape and not being a devotee. But the string is around my foot. My dear Lord, will you do one thing for me? Even though I keep flapping to try to get away from you, will you keep pulling that string?" Wonderful. So what we do is we try to see Krishna prematurely, and that by itself is not correct. And at the other times, what we do is Krishna does give us a glimpse of himself. It's very real. Krishna gives us a very real experience. And immediately we praise ourselves for the experience, isn't it? My old friend Tribhuvanath, he said two things can happen when you have a really, really good kirtan. Really good kirtan, like the kirtan we had this morning. So everybody's jumping, chanting, dancing. Somehow it takes off, isn't it? Somehow the kirtan takes off. It's not just the music, although Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, if you have the drums and you have the cymbals and you have a nice melody and you have the devotees there with you, then it is easier for you to appreciate the holy name. But it is like a flux welds two metals together. He said, so the music with which the kirtan is accompanied is like the flux that will weld together the holy name and your ear. So the holy name will stick to your ear if you use the flux of music. So music is important, but it's not the essence, it's the packaging. So the essence is the holy name of Krishna. It's just that sometimes when it's just me, Hare Krishna, Krishna, and there's no instruments, Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Rama. There's no one else jumping and chanting and singing and laughing and crying. And I had my different clinching experiences. One was when I had a Sunday morning kirtan. We'd come back from book distribution after probably about 2 weeks, when I was still seeing red lights in the sky. But I saw devotees in front of the altar, and they were all old men. I was 17, so they were all old men, 23, 24. They'd been around a bit, They'd really done life. And I saw these old men crying. So they were just in front of the altar. They were just crying, and I thought, well, this is real. Either this is something real, or they're bonkers. So I stayed long enough. I'm still checking it out. 43 years, I'm still checking it out. So sometimes we do not give ourselves sufficient grace to understand that Krishna has given us anugraha, or mercy. So on those days, you should be very generous with yourself and take your right hand and just give yourself a pat on the back or stroke your cheek, just help yourself and look in the mirror and say, I am a devotee. What I experience when I practice bhakti yoga is real. Krishna has reached out to me. I'm very grateful for what I've received. Like that. Speak like that to yourself. Life-affirming, self-affirming voice. However, if you start seeing Krishna dancing in the middle of the night in the lake, then come and see me. So these people, they saw Krishna, but they took their desire to see Krishna and they projected it on top of a fisherman. Nothing wrong with fishermen. Jesus had a great way with fishermen. They all joined him, made converts. Nothing wrong with fishermen. But at the same time, fisherman is not Krishna dancing on. So he lit a torch, and they thought that was Krishna shining. So Lord Caitanya had to disavow them of that reality. So Prabhupada goes on to describe, and we'll get that next week, how there is a class of men who imagine many, many things about Krishna and many, many things about their relationship with Krishna, even that they have become gopis. And they dress like gopis and they sing in a high voice and, they imagine that they've become gopis. Either they practice the sadhana of dressing like that so that they will lose their masculinity and become gopis, hopefully. Then some imagine that they've already attained that state. And that's a difficult issue because the beard is still growing. So sometimes you'll go to a temple in India, as I have, in Bengal particularly. Bengalis seem to have this difficulty. So you'll see a woman on the altar with a sari, her head covered, and you'll think, oh, I didn't know women were allowed to serve on the altar in India. I didn't know this was part of the culture. And then the man turns around and he's got a big beard. And you go, oh, okay, I'm in this sort of temple. And then you politely pay your respects and move on to another temple. This happened to me once. But I went on a morning walk. I had a morning walk with Srila Prabhupada in 1975 or something. March 1975 when he came to the manor. And we were walking out of the village of Lechmore Heath. And there was a devotee who was an artist, not like a Hokshaja, but an artist who imagined many things about Krishna. Anyway, he'd gone to India and he'd come back with what he thought was a higher form of Krishna consciousness than Srila Prabhupada had given. He'd gone to Bengal. And his name was Prema something. Anyway, he hadn't quite developed Prema. So he was standing there at the top of Summerhouse Lane on the T-junction, and Prabhupada was walking past that junction. And we couldn't believe our eyes because Prema, the brahmachari, who had been to India, was wearing a red and white sari and bangles and army boots. Not a great look. Not a great look. And so Prabhupada just looked and walked by. Anyway, the point here is that sometimes there's a great mixing what is it called? Atmavan manyate jagat. As I think, so I see the world. That's a problem. So part of the guru's function is course correction. Prabhupada said, if I leave India in a ship, he said, and the captain sets sail on sets out on his journey on the Atlantic, and he's 1 degree off course. If he's 1 degree, just 1 degree off course, Prabhupada said, we will not reach New York. We will go somewhere else. And therefore, the captain has to make constant course correction if he doesn't have the electronic equipment to do it for him. So the guru is also a course corrector. So the idea is tap, 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 little course correction here, course correction there. So here's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu performing the function of guru. He's the original guru, of course. He's performing the course correction. He says, very nice sentiment that you want to see Krishna dancing on the hoods of Kaliya. Very nice that you projected that into the world. Because the idea is that you see Krishna in the world. So everything can remind you of Krishna. But if you then think, aha, Krishna has revealed himself to me in this way, then this is no more real than a stanu purusha. Stanu purusha, a tree person. And sometimes it looks very real, doesn't it? On a dark night. Who doesn't like walking down a country lane in the dark? Pretty much everyone. But why? It's just trees. It's just trees. It's not, there's a story of King Vikramaditya. You ever read those stories? King Vikramaditya? 32 stories of King Vikramaditya, very popular in India. Anyway, he was walking past a tree and he saw 6 dead men hanging from the tree. Gruesome stories. Good for kids. And it was a stormy night, in the flash of lightning, he looked and he saw these. Anyway, the point is that the tree is not a person. Ultimately, you could say, yes, it is, but it's covered. But Stanu Purusha is not a man, but it looks as if it's a man. It looks as if it's a man coming to get you. Like that. So people see things and they don't know. It's like in the olden days, we used to travel in buses, camper vans and buses and Winnebagos and different things like this. And there was a Radha Damodar bus in America, and they used to have like 15, 20 brahmacharis on board the bus. Got very smelly. But they had ecstatic kirtans and ecstatic festivals, and they distributed books, and Prabhupada was very happy with it. Greyhound buses. Anyway, they had Radha Damodar deities like this installed. And the police got a call one morning. That there was a boy and a girl tied up in a bus, and someone was torturing them with flames, and the children. So what they'd seen through the bus windows was an arti lamp being offered to the boy and the girl. They were being tortured. So it's America, police, guns. On another occasion in southern Italy, the devotees were, they were collecting, selling books, collecting, and doing rather well. And the local mafia, which still exists, is still very, very real. Not in the devotees' mind. Unfortunately, the devotees could not project. They didn't project their own reality, but they didn't see the reality for what it was in that part of it. And the mafia came and they found out where the devotees were staying in their truck, and they machine gunned the truck. And the devotee was sleeping inside. He was in his bunk and he just heard this tunk, 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 tunk. He woke up with bullet holes all down the side of the truck because you had encroached on their reality. And their reality is, this is our place. We ask people for money in this town, not you. So we've gone all over the country. at the very first Harinam in 1972, was it? In Dublin. Did I tell this the other day? Devotees were arrested for wearing strange clothing. The police charged them, you can't dress in public like this. It's offensive. And they were actually arrested, they actually had to stand up in court. And I was once in charge of a program where we were giving out boiled sweets. The trick is always to be able to stop and talk to people. So we had boiled sweets in 5 fruity flavors: raspberry, strawberry, pineapple, lime, and orange. So they were just sugar with flavoring. So we were told that it was all right to offer them to Radha Gokulananda. So we offered them big containers of them, and we went out and we filled up a flower pot, a plastic flower pot. And from the plastic flower pot, we were stopping people and saying, "Hey, it's sweet day today. You look sweet. Take a sweet." And of course, everybody knows. Yes, you've spoken the truth. Devotees have a variety of lines like this. You know, you look like an intelligent person. Yeah, actually, you're right. Your reality is my reality. So you look like a nice person. You look like a sweet person. Take this sweet. So we'd offer them, of course, so people were taking prasadam. The difficulty is it still looked like an ordinary sweet that you buy in the sweet shop. So the case came to court. I was arrested. I had to stand in the dock and give an explanation. This is, where we had to talk to the judge. So I defended myself and I said, Your Worship, or whatever it was, these sweets are offered to God. Therefore, we consider them, although they look ordinary, they're sacred in nature. We distribute them in the street, rather like a Catholic priest would distribute a host. So they listened very patiently. So I had my flower pot with some sweets. And the judge said, "Pass the sweets forward, please." And so the sweets came forward. He looked like this, and the whole court was like, you could hear a pin drop. You could hear the rustling. He undid it, look, he said, "This is obviously temporal, not spiritual. Fine £5." So his reality was that if it looks like a sweet, it's an ordinary sweet. My reality is that if it looks like an ordinary sweet and it's been offered to Krishna and distributed by a devotee, it's prasadam. Therefore it's spiritual, not temporal. Where he could not see that. So the idea is we're living, as we were speaking, we're living with different realities, and our invitation is that people come into the world of Krishna, the Krishna reality. Why? Because Krishna's view of reality is correct, because it's his reality. It's not yours. It's not mine. It's not his. It's not hers. It's not the Pope's. It's not the Prime Minister. It's not anybody else's. It's Krishna's world. So if God made the world, he gets the perspective right. So therefore we accept that. And that's what we distribute. And that's what we share with others. And if you do share it with others, it's very, very surprising how people come forward and they said, "Yeah, I've always been thinking like that." Many people come and they say, I've had thoughts about Eastern philosophy for a long time. What you say sounds true. You've just got to repeat what happens. We had a gentleman who he joined one of our. I'll finish soon. He joined one of our groups, and he had a problem, as people do. His reality was that, when he saw fish, he saw fishing, and he was very attached to fishing on a Sunday morning. So we said to him, "Why do you like fishing?" He said, "Well, it's just like meditation." He said, "Well, why don't you come to the temple and meditate? Because meditation is just like meditation." He said, "Well, I sit there with my, the rod is in the water, and whether I catch a fish or whether I don't," he said, "it's meditation. I'm just meditating on that one space." And so he came for about 6 or 7 weeks, and then he went away. And on a Sunday morning, we didn't see him, so we knew where he was, Anyway, he was out by the local river, and he was fishing, and he caught a fish. Now what was he going to do? So he said, well, I won't kill it, but I'll just pull it in. So he wound up his rod, and it was a heavy fish. Big, heavy thing it was. So he pulled it in, and it wasn't a fish. It was a plastic shopping bag filled with rubbish. He said, oh, damn, it's not a fish at all. He said, I should have been with the devotees. So I didn't catch a fish at all. So he pulled out the shopping bag, opened the shopping bag. Inside was a Bhagavad Gita. He got the message and gave up fishing completely. So Krishna has a way, a very magical way of introducing us to his reality, step by step. But we can't push it. We can't invent. We can't imagine. We can't sentimentalize. We have to wait until it happens. We have to be very patient. Hare Krishna. So, it's time, isn't it? It's time. So we're going to have a festival, another festival this morning. Very nice. Any questions? Or should we just go immediately to breakfast? Probably immediately to breakfast. Let's go to breakfast. Do it all again afterwards. Hare Krishna, thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.